Have you ever wondered if there was a way to break free from the constant search for a job and finally discover a path to financial freedom that doesn't rely solely on receiving a paycheck from someone else? Perhaps you felt that lingering curiosity at the back of your mind, nudging you to explore whether it's possible to reshape your life so that you can experience true prosperity without being bound by the constraints of traditional work. Today, we're going to delve into an ancient insight that has been hidden in plain sight for centuries. An insight found right in the Bible and exemplified by none other than King Solomon, the wisest and richest figure in biblical history. There is a subtle but profound secret buried in Scripture, a secret Solomon knew well, and it speaks directly to this very question. How does one earn money without being enslaved to a typical 9-to-5 job? Before we immerse ourselves in this fascinating exploration, I invite you to subscribe to the Mental Dose channel so you never miss any of our upcoming videos on personal and spiritual growth. Now, let's begin our journey into the deeper wisdom King Solomon has to offer. As we begin, it's important to consider how society often teaches that success must come from finding a stable job, working for decades, and relying on that steady income. Many of us, from early on, are told that a secure position with a dependable salary is the key that unlocks all the doors to our future. We shape our lives around that principle, believing that if we simply work long enough and save enough, we'll eventually become successful. Yet there's another perspective, one that challenges the idea that a single job or fixed wage is the main determinant of lasting prosperity. In the Bible, King Solomon demonstrates a completely different approach. He was not known for punching a clock or tying himself to a single occupation. Instead, he recognized that wisdom itself, coupled with shrewd management of resources, forms the foundation for genuine, enduring abundance. At first glance, some might assume that wisdom sounds abstract, more related to philosophical insights than practical daily life. But the way Solomon frames it in Scripture is surprisingly concrete. In one key passage, he says, "With me are riches and honor, lasting wealth and righteousness." These words are frequently quoted to illustrate a biblical perspective on wealth. True prosperity isn't merely about accumulating money, nor does it depend on conventional routes like a monthly paycheck. Rather, it stems from the ability to use wisdom and sound judgment in everyday decisions, whether those decisions involve finances, relationships, or any other aspect of life. When we unpack Solomon's notion of prosperity, we find that it encompasses something far deeper than possessing material goods. We might describe it as holistic well-being, an all-encompassing stability that can't be easily shaken by external circumstances. If prosperity is simply the amount of money sitting in your bank account, it can vanish with sudden economic downturns or unwise decisions. However, if it's built on the rock-solid foundation of wisdom, on honorable dealings, careful thought, and continuous learning, it becomes far more enduring. Solomon's approach emphasizes that lasting wealth is supported by a profound sense of justice and responsibility, suggesting that how you handle your resources and whether you do so ethically is intimately connected to the longevity of your wealth. We can contrast what Solomon calls lasting wealth with the concept of temporary wealth, which vanishes as quickly as it arrives. Temporary wealth might come from an unexpected inheritance, a stroke of lottery luck, or an impulsive business windfall. It offers a flash of excitement, but since there's no solid mental framework behind it, the fortunes can disappear almost overnight. Without wisdom, an understanding of how to preserve, invest, and multiply that money, the gains slip through the fingers. On the other hand, lasting wealth grows steadily, fueled by consistent and wise decision-making over months, years, and even decades. It is characterized not just by a rising balance in your accounts, but also by the honor, respect, and dignity that follow those who act with righteousness. To expand on King Solomon's perspective, we should look more closely at his life story. According to the Bible, he inherited the throne from his father, King David, who had unified the tribes of Israel. Solomon, upon becoming king, didn't ask for wealth, victory over his enemies, or a long life. He asked God for wisdom and understanding to govern the people well. Impressed by this noble request, God granted him not only unparalleled wisdom, but also wealth and honor beyond measure. His name became legendary because he harnessed his wisdom to build alliances, enhance trade, and create an environment in which prosperity could flourish. He constructed a temple in Jerusalem, drawing on both local resources and partnerships with neighboring rulers. This magnificent project is often cited as a testament to how strategic planning, coupled with a vision guided by divine insight, can establish something truly grand and enduring. From this narrative, it's striking that Solomon's success wasn't tied to seeking a defined career the way many in modern culture do. Indeed, if we asked, what was Solomon's job, we might struggle to give a straightforward answer. He wasn't merely a statesman or a builder. Rather, he lived out a lifestyle of wisdom that generated continual growth in wealth and influence. Though we don't typically describe the role of a king as a regular job, the underlying principle remains relevant today. If someone were to replicate Solomon's strategies, always seeking deeper insights, forging smart partnerships, diversifying investments, and ensuring that all actions are rooted in moral and ethical considerations, they could cultivate a wealth that stands the test of time and isn't beholden to one single form of employment. Moreover, Solomon's teachings highlight a key component: honor. Honor, in this context, refers to the recognition and respect people grant to someone who conducts their affairs with integrity and fairness. It's not about flaunting riches or lording wealth over others. True honor, as Solomon indicated, is intrinsically linked to justice and moral uprightness. A person who grows wealthy by exploiting others might gain money temporarily, but they will lose trust, hamper relationships, and invite conflicts. This creates a fragile empire of wealth. Conversely, those who create value ethically, serving real needs while practicing fair dealings, will earn both money and respect, weaving themselves into a reliable network of relationships that sustains them when times get tough. Justice, then, becomes another pillar in Solomon's model of true prosperity. Building wealth or success on shady dealings is akin to constructing a house on sand. It can collapse at any moment, but by laying a foundation of justice, treating people fairly, fulfilling promises, paying workers their due, and seeking beneficial outcomes for all parties, wealth has a stable platform to grow upon. Solomon's wisdom is timeless. If you want lasting wealth, you must practice justice consistently. This aligns with various stories throughout the Bible, whether we look at Abraham's fairness in dealings with his nephew Lot or Joseph's honest administration in Egypt. Ethical conduct is presented as an essential aspect of a life that ultimately bears abundant fruit. All of this leads to a thought-provoking shift in our thinking about traditional work. Typically, if you ask someone how they plan to improve their financial situation, they might say, I need a better paying job, or I need a promotion, or I have to find another role if this one doesn't work out. But Solomon's viewpoint suggests something entirely different. That real financial security and growth arise not from a salary, but from internal resourcefulness, from the capacity to spot opportunities, and from the discipline to manage assets wisely. A single income stream, the paycheck, often leaves a person vulnerable. If the job market shifts, or if one's industry declines, that single source of income can dry up. King Solomon's approach is about creating multiple streams of income, investing in what works, and seeing money as a tool that should be put to work rather than something that merely drips in from the outside. Expanding on that idea, the notion of diversification is evident in the biblical account of Solomon. He traded in goods with neighboring nations, engaged in shipping ventures, and cultivated prosperous alliances. By not leaning solely on one form of revenue, he ensured resilience against market fluctuations. The same concept applies to modern life. Many financial advisors today emphasize building multiple income streams, be it through real estate, stock investments, digital business, or other entrepreneurial pursuits, so that losing one stream doesn't derail everything. When you align these strategies with Solomon's overarching principle of justice and honor, you're more likely to navigate financial storms and continue growing over the long haul. Yet none of this happens without learning. Solomon was famously dedicated to understanding the deeper nature of things, whether it was biology, trade, human behavior, or governance. Seeking wisdom means being a lifelong student, reading, observing, questioning, experimenting, and reflecting. In modern times, this might entail reading books on personal finance and investment, attending seminars, networking with mentors, learning new skills, and so on. The Bible underscores how central wisdom was to Solomon's life. He not only sought knowledge, but also used it to make prudent decisions. By following that example, one begins to see that wisdom stands at the intersection of learning and applying what has been learned. It's not enough to know in theory how to manage money or spot market trends. You have to implement those insights consistently in everyday life. Diligence is also a critical factor in Solomon's teaching. Diligence doesn't mean mindless hard work with no direction. It implies a focused, strategic, thoughtful approach. Some people work from dawn to dusk and barely make ends meet. Others seem to work fewer hours, but use their time more productively, creating connections and projects that yield greater returns. Diligence, as painted in the book of Proverbs, involves careful planning, steady effort, and consistent follow-through. In one of Solomon's proverb-like teachings, he contrasts the hard-working ant with the sluggard, illustrating how those who work intelligently and consistently lay up resources for the future. Incorporating diligence into your pursuits ensures that you are always building momentum toward a more prosperous tomorrow. But what about the practical side? How exactly do people apply these ideas to their own lives? Imagine someone who has a regular job but dreams of stepping away from that dependency. Following Solomon's wisdom might start with a simple self-education regimen. Perhaps they set aside time each evening to study how various markets work. Maybe the stock market, real estate, or digital business. They might then start small, investing a modest sum to gain experience and skill, learning from mistakes, and refining their strategies. Instead of chasing get-rich-quick schemes, they adopt a patient, long-range perspective. Over time, they build a small portfolio or begin a side project that eventually grows, supplementing and potentially surpassing their main source of income. By the time they are ready to leave their job, they're doing so not out of desperation, but because they've nurtured a stable foundation of multiple income sources. That's precisely the sort of progression King Solomon's wisdom encourages. Furthermore, the Bible's illustration of Solomon's life includes a strong sense of generosity and responsibility. When you're building wealth, the aim isn't only to hoard resources for personal benefit. Generosity is another recurring theme in biblical narratives. Abraham shared generously, and Job was known for helping the needy. Solomon himself presided over a kingdom where trade and sharing of goods benefited the broader population. This echoes the principle that ethical, principled wealth building includes giving back, whether it's through charity, community support, or fair business practices. That generosity actually reinforces your position in the community, creating goodwill and stronger networks. People are more inclined to trust and collaborate with someone who shows kindness and respect. Honor, justice, wisdom, diligence, and generosity. These 5 elements form a tapestry that captures Solomon's concept of long-term wealth. When we incorporate all of them into our practical strategies, we begin to see how relevant these teachings remain. It's not simply about reading an ancient text and admiring it. It's about allowing those truths to transform how we approach our daily challenges. We see that you don't have to be stuck in the cycle of job hunting or the anxiety of waiting for the next paycheck. Instead, you can start from where you are, learn continuously, practice fairness, keep your eyes open for opportunities to diversify, and remain generous in your dealings. At this point, some people may question whether the pursuit of wealth aligns with spiritual values. Isn't the Bible often considered anti-materialistic? Actually, Scripture warns about the love of money becoming an idol, cautioning that greed leads to many downfalls. But it doesn't condemn responsible wealth building. Rather, it condemns placing money above ethical values and above one's relationship with God. Solomon's life and the lives of other biblical figures indicate that financial abundance can be a positive force when combined with integrity and gratitude. There's nothing inherently wrong with enjoying the fruits of hard work and prudent management, especially if those resources allow you to positively impact your community and loved ones. It may help to recall that Abraham was blessed with great flocks and herds. Job had immense wealth, which was restored to him in a greater measure after his trials. And Joseph rose to second in command in Egypt, overseeing vast resources. All these figures demonstrate that wealth, used wisely and ethically, is not a barrier to faith or morality. The real question is whether you're letting wisdom guide the accumulation and use of wealth, as opposed to succumbing to vanity, corruption, or destructive greed. Turning back to the modern world, there's a tempting narrative that runs counter to Solomon's teaching, a narrative urging us to define ourselves solely by our employment. We talk about job security as if it's the only path to peace of mind. Yet the events of recent history remind us that job security can be fleeting. Entire industries can shift or vanish, leaving people scrambling. Solomon's wisdom suggests a more resilient framework. Build your foundation on learning, ethical action, diversified investments, and the understanding that wealth is more than just money. Wealth is also the relationships you cultivate, the goodwill you foster, and the impact you have on others. That kind of comprehensive wealth cannot be taken away by a single corporate decision or an economic downturn. Every day, you have the opportunity to practice this wisdom. You can take small but purposeful steps to shift your mentality. Maybe it's deciding to put aside a portion of each paycheck, no matter how small, and learning how to invest it. Maybe it's starting a side endeavor that aligns with your interests or talents, something that challenges you to grow and innovate. Or maybe it's rethinking your entire approach to wealth by asking yourself questions like, am I using my resources to create value for others as well as for myself? Am I managing my finances in a way that's sustainable and grounded in ethical principles? Over time, these small decisions become habits, and those habits transform your financial destiny. Solomon's perspective also invites us to reflect on time. In a culture where everything seems to speed up, we often crave immediate results. People want to see their bank account jump overnight. But wisdom, by its nature, is patient. It recognizes that true growth usually takes consistent effort. Trees don't bear fruit the moment they're planted. Businesses, skills, investments, and personal relationships all require careful nurturing over time. The advantage of building on a slow, stable foundation is that it's far less likely to crumble. In contrast, chasing a quick windfall often leads to poor judgment, risky behavior, and decisions that aren't aligned with deeper values. By adopting patience, we align ourselves with a sustainable model of growth that can endure for years or decades. If we imagine a future in which people truly internalize these teachings, we see communities that are less reliant on large corporations for employment and more willing to create opportunities themselves. This doesn't mean abandoning traditional jobs outright. Some people find great fulfillment in their professions, and that's commendable. But it does mean recognizing that there is an alternative to putting all your eggs in one basket. The rise of digital entrepreneurship, freelance work, and creative collaborations are modern examples of how a person can broaden their sources of income. Yet the underlying principles remain ancient. Learn as much as you can, treat people fairly, diversify your efforts, stay diligent, and be generous. In so doing, you weave yourself into a broader network of prosperity that goes far beyond what any single paycheck can provide. Even if you do keep your regular job, embracing Solomon's wisdom means you're not mentally confined by it. Instead of seeing that job as your only anchor, you begin viewing it as one part of your financial landscape, an income stream that can help you invest in something that may eventually surpass your day-to-day earnings. Over time, you can step away from needing that job altogether if you choose. Or you may remain in it because you love what you do, but the difference is that it becomes a choice rather than a necessity. That sense of freedom, of having options, is at the core of what Solomon's teachings promise, a life where money serves you and not the other way around. This perspective also invites a healthier emotional relationship with wealth. Often, people who rely solely on their paycheck live with an underlying anxiety about job loss, layoffs, or sudden shifts in management. That worry can weigh heavily on the psyche, sometimes leading to burnout or desperation. When you embrace a wisdom-based approach to finances, you build internal confidence. You know that your security doesn't hinge on the decisions of a manager or CEO you've never met. You stand on a broader foundation that you've created through your learning, relationships, and multiple ventures. This sense of security and peace of mind can't be easily bought, and it contributes significantly to overall life satisfaction. The question we might ask ourselves is, how do we practically start embodying King Solomon's wisdom right now, especially if we feel stuck in our current circumstances? First, it's crucial to cultivate a desire for learning. This might involve carving out daily or weekly time to study areas of finance, business, or investment that interest you. Second, reflect on your ethical and spiritual values. Remind yourself that building prosperity goes hand in hand with fairness and generosity. Wealth is a tool to uplift yourself and others, not a vehicle for selfish gain. Third, look for opportunities to diversify, even in small ways. Maybe that means launching a small online store or learning about rental properties. Fourth, always remain diligent. Follow through on the plans you make and be prepared to pivot as you learn. If one endeavor shows promise, nurture it further. If it doesn't, glean the lessons, adjust, and move forward. Through all these actions, keep in mind Solomon's statement, "With me are riches and honor, lasting wealth and righteousness." He was essentially saying that if wisdom is at the helm of your life, the rest will follow. And indeed, Solomon's kingdom was famed for its prosperity. The Queen of Sheba traveled far to witness his wisdom and wealth firsthand, and she was astonished by the depth of his insight and the abundance of his resources. The moral here is that honest, well-directed wisdom naturally manifests in external blessings. When you align your decisions with a higher order of knowledge, whether spiritual, moral, or practical, it sets off a chain reaction that draws in opportunities and fortifies what you already have. If you doubt this process, consider historical examples of entrepreneurs, investors, and leaders who built their legacies through thoughtful planning and moral clarity. Their industries vary from technology to real estate to hospitality, but the pattern tends to hold. They learned continually, they cultivated trustworthy relationships, they stayed diligent through obstacles, and they usually gave back in some significant way. Many of these principles align with the biblical concept of wisdom, even if they might not explicitly frame it as such. The real power of Solomon's wisdom is that it transcends time and place. Even if you're living in a completely different culture or historical period, the essence of what he taught still applies. Money is a universal concept, as are ethics, diligence, and the importance of spreading your opportunities across multiple ventures. The difference is that thousands of years ago, trade routes and agricultural endeavors were the vehicles for wealth building, while today we might leverage globalized markets and digital platforms. The core idea remains, though. Let wisdom guide your financial strategies, uphold justice in your dealings, honor your commitments, and you will cultivate something lasting. This also helps us understand that financial prosperity is not inherently at odds with spirituality or personal growth. Often, there's a misconception that to be spiritual, one must reject material wealth. While ascetic paths exist in many traditions, and some individuals are called to live with minimal possessions, the broader biblical view acknowledges that wealth can be part of a balanced, meaningful life, as long as it doesn't become a snare that pulls you away from your higher values. Solomon's example makes that clear. He asked for wisdom to serve his people, and the wealth was added to him almost as a byproduct. He demonstrated that the pursuit of greater knowledge, moral conduct, and societal betterment could coincide with abundant resources. We can apply this perspective in modern philanthropy as well. Those who accumulate resources ethically can empower entire communities, fund education programs, support healthcare initiatives, and foster spiritual and personal growth for others. Ultimately, wealth becomes a tool of compassion and upliftment. That's one reason why generosity is so crucial. It ensures that wealth remains a blessing rather than a curse, preventing it from becoming stagnant or self-serving. By sharing with others, through donations, mentorship, or helpful advice, you keep the cycle of abundance flowing and align with the deeper spiritual mandate to love our neighbors as ourselves. When you consider all of this, you begin to see that the road to prosperity without traditional employment isn't about skipping work or living irresponsibly. It's about embracing a deeper, more strategic, and morally grounded way of engaging with life's resources. Your mindset shifts from, how can I fit into the system to earn a living, to how can I tap into my gifts, serve others, and create value in a way that multiplies benefits for everyone involved. It's a question of stepping into a creative, wisdom-driven approach to life rather than merely existing in a reactive mode, waiting for the next paycheck. Imagine, for a moment, the life you would lead if you consistently put these principles into practice. Perhaps you wake up each day excited about the projects you've set in motion, rather than dreading a commute to a job that feels confining. You spend part of your morning reviewing new opportunities or analyzing how your existing ventures are performing. You have the freedom to devote time to personal development, whether that's reading about new investment strategies or exploring creative partnerships. Because you're not attached to a single source of income, you feel a sense of security and peace that you never had before. When economic shifts happen, you're able to adapt rather than panic, because your foundation is broader and deeper. Meanwhile, the respect you earn in your community grows naturally from your just and fair dealings. You become known as someone who not only knows how to build wealth, but also how to do it in a way that benefits and inspires others. Even if you face setbacks, which inevitably occur on any worthwhile journey, you treat them as learning moments. Wisdom doesn't promise an entirely smooth road. Rather, it promises a guiding light that helps you navigate obstacles constructively. If a particular investment fails, you examine why, refine your methods, and emerge stronger. Over time, this approach forms a robust character that pairs well with growing financial success. You're not merely wealthy in monetary terms. You're also wealthy in knowledge, resilience, and relationships. That holistic wealth is what Solomon taught. It's intriguing to note that many biblical heroes demonstrated resourcefulness in times of scarcity. Joseph, for example, used his wisdom to store grain during 7 years of plenty, so that when 7 years of famine came, Egypt remained strong, and he was able to help surrounding nations. This principle of preparing for the future, rather than living paycheck to paycheck, applies powerfully in our contemporary setting. If we adopt the same forward-thinking approach, we learn to plan not just for immediate needs, but also for potential downturns, ensuring that we and those who rely on us are protected. This is yet another dimension of wisdom, letting us see beyond the immediate moment into the broader cycles of life. As you reflect on Solomon's legacy, you might also recall that despite his immense wisdom, he wasn't without flaws. Later in his reign, he made certain political and personal alliances that, according to biblical accounts, led to spiritual compromises. This nuanced portrait serves as a reminder that wisdom is an ongoing pursuit, never a one-time achievement. The moment we think we've arrived, we risk becoming complacent or losing the moral compass that guided us in the first place. The journey of applying wisdom to finances, relationships, and personal decisions is lifelong, requiring humility and constant recalibration. With that in mind, how do we keep ourselves on the right track? One way is to remain teachable, surrounding ourselves with individuals who share or support the same values and who can offer corrections or insights when we veer off course. Another way is to stay rooted in the ethical and spiritual texts or traditions that help us remember why we seek prosperity in the first place. Constant reflection helps ensure that the wealth we acquire remains a tool of growth, rather than a stumbling block. In practical terms, each step forward might look like this. You invest time in learning, you apply what you learn in small increments, you review the outcomes, and you fine-tune your approach. You also consciously choose to operate with justice and honor, paying people fairly if you hire them for jobs, acknowledging and rewarding contributions from partners, and maintaining integrity in all dealings. Over time, these behaviors build a reputation that precedes you, which becomes an intangible asset of immense value. People want to work with someone they can trust and respect. That intangible factor frequently opens doors and presents you with opportunities that others might miss. The biblical text reminds us, a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. Yet in the paradoxical economy of wisdom, striving to live by that principle often brings about not just a good name, but also financial blessings. This is because trust and positive relationships underpin most forms of genuine success. If you're known for honesty and excellence, people seek you out, whether it's for business opportunities, partnerships, or creative projects. This circles back to Solomon's statement about honor accompanying wisdom. He recognized that moral rectitude and financial growth are not opposing forces, but complementary aspects of a wise life. Now, turning directly to you, what can you do today to start shifting your mindset and your practical habits? Perhaps you can begin by acknowledging that you are more than your job title or your position in a single company. You possess unique skills, insights, and passions that can generate value independently. From that realization, you might brainstorm ways to express these attributes in a manner that also creates income. It could be as simple as freelancing your skills on the side or pooling resources with friends or colleagues to start a small venture. Alongside this, you continue to study the principles of investing or the specifics of whatever field intrigues you, always with an eye toward ethical application. Over time, you'll notice a shift in your attitude. The job no longer feels like a ball and chain because it's no longer your sole source of security. You become more proactive, looking for collaboration and innovation. The self-confidence that comes from these steps can't be overstated. By grounding yourself in Solomon's timeless lessons, you replace fear with curiosity and scarcity thinking with an abundance mindset that sees potential everywhere. Each incremental success, each lesson learned, fuels your momentum further. This reorientation is precisely what is meant by the biblical notion of renewing your mind. You are transitioning from a mindset of dependency, where your well-being hinges on one external factor, to a mindset of empowerment, where you recognize your capacity to steward multiple opportunities wisely. This doesn't guarantee that every investment or idea will immediately pay off, but it does radically expand your horizon of possibilities. You learn to think, plan, and act as a creator of value, rather than merely a recipient of wages. And indeed, the moment you stop searching for a job in the traditional sense and start seeking wisdom, something remarkable happens. Opportunities you might have overlooked begin to seem viable. Your creative energy flows in new directions, and you start noticing all sorts of ways you can bring value to the marketplace. Instead of passively waiting for someone to hire you, you become the one who generates new solutions, new products, or new services. With consistent effort and commitment to ethical principles, the money begins to follow, often in ways you couldn't have predicted at the outset. This is not to say jobs are obsolete. There's absolutely a place for employment. Many individuals find profound purpose in their professional roles and excel within organizations. However, the key is to hold on to the bigger truth. Your potential and security do not hinge entirely on that job. True prosperity arises from who you become, how you think, and how you manage your resources day in and day out. Solomon, living centuries ago, was providing a template that applies just as much to a modern software engineer or freelance writer as it did to an ancient king ruling a sprawling kingdom. Wisdom, justice, diligence, diversification, and generosity form a universal blueprint for prosperity that transcends time. When you stand in that place of wisdom, even the concept of failure shifts. A setback is no longer a definitive measure of your capability or worth. It's data, feedback that you can use to adapt. By operating with integrity, you maintain healthy relationships and find that people are willing to give you second chances or new opportunities. The measure of wealth extends beyond the material, permeating your emotional well-being and social connections. That's how Solomon could speak confidently of lasting wealth and righteousness, weaving moral and financial success together in a seamless tapestry. Now, envision yourself a few years down the line, having internalized Solomon's principles. You might have multiple revenue streams, perhaps a combination of prudent investments, a small business, and creative ventures. You've built a network of people who appreciate your honesty and expertise, so new opportunities frequently come your way. You feel less stressed because you're not trapped by a single source of income, and you can take on or turn down projects based on what aligns with your values and interests. You're also more able to help others, whether that's family, friends, or charitable causes. You become an example to those around you, demonstrating that a biblical, wisdom-centric approach to wealth is both practical and fulfilling. Additionally, you remain humble, recognizing that wisdom is an ongoing pursuit. You keep learning and refining. You might even mentor others, passing on the lessons you've gathered, perpetuating a positive cycle. In this way, your life becomes a living illustration of Solomon's insight. Far from being limited to ancient tales, that insight resonates through every transaction, relationship, and project you undertake. It lifts you out of the confines of fear and scarcity, empowering you to take calculated risks that expand your horizons. It's worth pausing to acknowledge that there will be naysayers who insist that in our modern age, everything is too complex, too competitive, or too uncertain for these timeless principles to hold. But if anything, the complexity of modern life only underscores the importance of wisdom. With so many choices, so many ways to invest, work, and collaborate, it becomes critical to discern which path aligns with justice and long-term viability. Those who master wise decision-making can navigate the swirl of possibilities far more effectively than those who operate impulsively or unethically. At the end of the day, Solomon's core advice boils down to something beautifully simple. If you seek wisdom above all else, wealth in its many forms often follows. And that wealth includes material resources, but also the immaterial blessings of honor, trust, and fulfillment. Relying solely on a job means your prosperity rests in the hands of someone else, or on a fluctuating economy. Relying on wisdom means that no matter where you find yourself, facing a booming market or a recession in a big city or a rural community, you have the internal capacity to shape your destiny. Wisdom brings with it creativity, resilience, and a moral compass, enabling you to find or create opportunities where others see none. Of course, faith plays a role in this framework, especially for those who resonate with the biblical context. Placing trust in a higher power, as Solomon did, can guide and illuminate one's path, ensuring that the pursuit of wealth remains grounded in service and ethical living. For others, the moral impetus might come from a strong personal code or a sense of social responsibility. Regardless, the principle remains: wealth must serve life and not the other way around. As we approach the conclusion of this exploration, remember that the real transformation happens when you apply these insights to your daily routine. Even small, incremental changes can compound into significant results over time. much like the principle of compound interest in finance. Whether you're reading an article on financial literacy, starting a side gig, or rethinking how to spend and invest your money, each action lays another brick in the foundation of your future prosperity. Keep in mind that the central message from Solomon is not about chasing a magical formula, but rather embracing a lifestyle anchored in continuous learning, moral integrity, strategic thinking, and generosity. So, what about you? Are you ready to reshape how you view money, success, and work? Are you prepared to step into a realm where your financial destiny doesn't hinge on job postings or someone else's pay scale, but instead on the wisdom-based decisions you make day after day? If you genuinely want to change your financial life and achieve a sense of freedom and fulfillment, begin by letting wisdom be your guide. Study, learn, and apply these principles and watch as new doors open. As you move in this direction, you might be astonished at how quickly your sense of limitation falls away. You'll realize that a richer life, both literally and figuratively, is well within your reach if you commit to living by wisdom standards. We thank you so much for spending your time with us, delving into these powerful insights passed down through centuries. If this content has inspired you in any way, we'd love for you to give us a like and subscribe to the Mental Dose channel for more guidance on personal, financial, and spiritual growth. Your support truly means a lot, and we're excited to continue exploring pathways to lasting prosperity together. Always remember that true financial freedom stems from wisdom, justice, and a willingness to keep learning. When you let Solomon's teachings influence your daily actions, you transform not only your financial well-being, but also your sense of purpose, your relationships, and ultimately, your capacity to live a life of honor and fulfillment. Keep seeking knowledge, continue practicing ethical principles, and never forget that wealth is just one facet of a fully realized life. We look forward to guiding you further on this journey. See you in the next video. 1.